So I've got a really exciting review for you today. Got 3 new irons and a little bit of a story to talk about with this particular brand. One of the real underdogs in golf, in my personal opinion. We're going to hit them all and test them and give you my feedback in this video. Got the brand new Wilson lineup of irons in the staff model family. Now, they've really made a clean split now between game improvement, forgiveness and power, and also then more of that traditional players forged sort of club as well. And this is where the staff model comes into it. So we've got 3 brand new models. We've got a new updated MB iron, the blade. We've got an updated CB iron, and we've got a brand new iron, which they've never done before, is the staff model XB. So we'll talk a little bit about initial looks of the golf club. Very different to what we've seen in the previous model. So we're now seeing this very sort of bit more of a modern, clean satin finish. So the high polished chrome has gone. I think we see a lot of the other brands sort of take this route really and be more of a sort of satin, dulled out finish. A little bit more of a modern look. We've also got that modern logo in the badge now, which lost the WS last model. So again, I think they're just pushing themselves more into that modern sort of era with the brand. But at the same time, we see that traditional markings on there. And what I mean by that is this little crimping on the hosel of each of these irons. We used to see that in the early models of the Wilson irons going back a number of years. I remember as a junior golfer, we always saw that sort of crimping. We see a little bit of that bore through on the sole of the club where that shaft goes into the sole. Again, that's what we used to see in those early models. So I like the fact they kept a little bit of tradition in there, but now making it a little bit more of a modern look. Right, so we're going to kick things off. I'm going to start with the brand new iron that they've never done before, and this is the hollow construction. So the staff model XB is what they're calling it. Again, it's a beautiful, clean look. We've got that satin all the way around it, so there's no high polished on there. Looking from the back, again, very clean. We've got the badge, we've got the staff model in there. The word forged just printed on the sole. We see that through bore. We've got Wilson on the hosel there with that nice little bit of traditional crimping just at the top of the hosel. So this, in the staff model range, is going to be their most forgiving option, but keeping that forged feel, which we'll obviously have a little look at when we start hitting this. But we've got that hollow construction, so we're giving that sleek players maybe look, but with that added a little bit of forgiveness in there. Now, into this playing position, as we always do, I think this is a great looking iron. And what I really like about this is it's not huge from that heel to toe, so it's a nice squat blade length, but it's obviously not too small by any means. We've got minimal offset at all there, so it's a very clean look. And I think these will definitely blend well with the CB and also the MB. And just talking about the lofts on these irons, so this 7 iron's coming in at 32 degrees of loft, so it's not ridiculously strong, which is nice and refreshing. Now, if you want stronger lofts, more ball speed, more distance, then you're probably going to edge more into the Dyna Power range, which is obviously going to give you that option. So I would say this is still going to give us some control, some spin, and again, will blend very nicely with the other 2 models that we see. So minimal offset there. Top line is probably quite medium. It's not too chunky at all. And it's a great look behind the ball. Really nice sort of shaping. That's a nice one to kick things off. Great feel off that and a really good sound as well initially from that hollow construction. So sometimes we see hollow irons just be a little bit sometimes clickier, don't we? Now we have got this fully forged sort of head on here, but obviously with the hollow, sometimes sound waves can bounce around inside, which gives us that slightly louder sort of sound to it. But that's a little bit more controlled, I would say. It's obviously not going to feel as muted and as soft as you're going to see with the one piece in the CB and the MB, but that's a nice sort of sounding golf club. Okay, that wasn't flush, that was a little bit low on the strike on the club face there. Let's see how that spins. The spin's really maintained there, 162 carry. That's quite refreshing. I think obviously this is going to be sitting in that P790 from TaylorMade category, a very, very popular category. And I think this iron will be very, very popular. But it's obviously not quite strong as the lofts as you see in most of those hollow construction areas. Most of the lofts in other brands around that 30, maybe 31 degrees of loft. So this is coming at 32. It's just sort of keeping a little bit of that control, spin maybe maintenance in there, and not really just striving for pure sort of distance. Oh, that's a great strike. That's a better strike. That's a beautiful ball flight. Great feel, really like that. So there we can see that return now in the ball speed, obviously through quality of strike on that particular one, 120 ball speed, 5.8, 169, a little bit more yardage. Again, that's obviously through my strike. That was the best one of the 3 so far. Oh, and again, that's great. Great feedback through the club there. So let's talk a little bit about the technology that's sort of happening in this particular iron, the XB. So obviously, as I mentioned, we've got hollow construction. So really what they're allowing to do there is distribute weight that is safe. So inside, obviously the weight's taken out and that's repositioned around the perimeter of the golf club, enhances obviously forgiveness. We've got face optimization, what Wilson are saying. So basically that's just allowing to keep ball speed up across the entire face. We hear that so often with other brands as well. And then we've got this acoustic help. So basically inside they're trying to break up, as I mentioned before, the sound waves so it doesn't get too loud and it keeps it more into that muted forged-like sort of feel. So I feel like they've done that very nicely there. And as I mentioned, I feel like this is going to be a really popular iron. I think somebody transitioning maybe from that Dynapower, that more game improvement iron, wanting something a little bit more forged, a little bit more sleeker look, then this would be a great introduction, a nice step forward for that type of golfer. So probably aiming for somebody who's maybe sort of high single-figure handicappers, maybe going into sort of mid to maybe even touching 20 handicap golfers could play this iron, if I'm being brutally honest. That feels great. Really, I mean, high ball flight. I mean, that's coming down with some nice land angle there. Again, 120 around area, ball speed, spins nice and controlled there around just short of that 6,000 mark. 169, you can see land angle at 48 degrees. We've got some good stopping power, even though it's a little bit stronger on that loft. So availability-wise, in the XB model, we've got a 2-iron, all the way through to pitch wedge and a gap wedge. Now the 2-iron's only available in right hand, but the 3-iron through to gap wedge are available in both right and left hand. I think what's also quite refreshing with these is the lofts. As I mentioned, 32 degrees on the 7-iron, but when you look at the wedge loft at 46 degrees, you could quite easily just blend in a nice sort of wedge profile after that. So some of the brands, when you see these stronger lofts, the wedge starts to creep more to 44. You're then having to put an extra wedge in there to get sort of gap in. It becomes a little bit heavy in that wedge area. So I think quite nice to sort of see that wedge sit at 46, which is exactly the same loft as the wedges that you see in the CB and also the MB. Okay, so now switching over, we've got staff model CB. So CB stands for cavity back. So things just get a little bit more neater now in this particular iron. The sole just gets a little bit thinner, the blade length just gets a little bit more squat, and we've just see that nice sort of small cavity in the back. So a little bit more of for a golfer who maybe wants that more compact look. We've now got obviously a fully forged head, but obviously no hollow construction, so sound might just be a little bit different on this. We'll obviously have a little look at that. But again, look at the back of the iron, it's beautiful and clean. Yes, we've got that sort of cavity in there, just staff model logo again, the badge, the word forged on the sole, Wilson on the heel, and that nice little bit of crimping and that through bore as we've seen in the other one. So keeping that consistency, again, with that satin finish through all of these 3 models. Now we'll just do a little comparison between the looks behind the golf ball, between the CB and that XB that we've just hit. So as I mentioned, we're just going to see things just get a little bit more squat, and we do see that. So the blade length on the CB just a little bit more shorter from heel to toe than the XB. Top line, I'd probably say it's a fraction thinner there. The offset's very similar, so it's very minimal on that offset. Obviously the shaping of the toe coming into the heel section as well is pretty identical. So it's really just a slight size difference between these two in that address position. So again, I feel that would make it more easy to sort of blend these irons. I mean, potentially you could go like XB in that longer iron, maybe that 3-iron, maybe that 4-iron, possibly even 5-iron if you want that little bit of help and forgiveness in that slightly longer iron. Then as you move into more of the mid to scoring irons, you could move then into the CB and potentially even then move into the MB as well in your short irons. Now, the CB 7-iron comes in at 34 degrees of loft, so very traditional lofting, which I really like. So it is a couple of degrees more weaker than we see in the XB, but it's not a big enough difference to maybe create gapping issues in there. And obviously through custom fit, you could tweak the lofts if you needed to tighten that gapping up. So CB, brilliant behind the ball, very nice compact look, very traditional sort of look, I would say, behind the ball. that feels fantastic. It is a slightly different sound. It's a more muted sound, as we're probably going to expect against that hollow construction iron. Again, very similar flight that we've just seen on that first particular shot. And some quite nice ball speed there. You know, again, we've gone up in loft here, haven't we? Look at those, identical next to each other. We've gone up a little bit in loft there, but that ball speed, you know, sitting around that sort of 120 mark isn't that much slower than what we've just seen with that XBI, which is quite interesting. So this is now obviously a forged. It's an 8620 carbon steel, one of the softest materials that we see in iron. So, and I definitely get that. I mean, I play the staff model MB, but the previous model, obviously we're going to look at the new one shortly in this video, and I just love the feel. The look is great, the feel is fantastic. So for me, it does feel super soft off the club face. And it just gives you that real nice sort of feedback. It feels like you can work the ball a little bit more. You know, if you're the type of golfer, and probably the golfer who goes into CB, maybe even the MB as well, is probably the golfer who wants to try and work and shape the ball a little bit differently out on that golf course. Okay, that's a little bit in that heel. That wasn't quite perfect on the strike. Yeah, there we go. You see that strike on TrackMan there, seeing the heel. There's a little bit of a drop off on ball speed and quite a bit of drop off on distance from those first two shots. So that's probably where, I mean, it was a bit of a misstrike that, but probably that's where XB would help me out a little bit more than against the CB potentially. Oh, that was the best strike of the lot. Beautiful high flight, great feel, great sound. It's a good strike. Nice flight again, decent ball speed. Little bit of a lower spin number on that actually, isn't it? So probably not quite as consistent on the spin number where you think it maybe would be a little bit more against that XB. But that is a great feeling iron for me. And I think, you know, when you look at the price of Wilson, and just Wilson as a history, I mean, it's got such strong heritage, hasn't it? You know, massively sort of popular back in the day. A lot of major winners playing with Wilson irons. They sort of went in a little bit of a dip, sort of went off the radar for a little bit, and now making, for me, a really good, strong comeback. And not enough golfers actually get to try these irons, which is a bit of a shame, really. But if you do, go out and do it. Because the price point of these is just a little bit less than you're going to see with the big brands. So, for instance, like your P790 to that XB iron, you look at about £150 cheaper for the Wilson. You can still get great components, full custom fit, everything like that. Then you look at it against maybe like the Titleist, you're a good £280 cheaper than Titleist. So the price point is there. Yes, it is edging, but isn't all golf equipment at the moment. So I think they're a great price point and high quality. So availability wise, in the CB iron, we've got a 3-iron all the way through to pitch wedge, as well as a gap wedge option. Now, moving into the pure out blade. This one I'm really looking forward to because, as I mentioned, I played the previous model and I have done for about 4 years now. I test a lot of golf equipment, a lot of great golf clubs, and I've always just stuck with the blade. I just really love the look. The feel is second to none. So obviously this is a little bit different now, this satin look. I like it. It's a bit more of a modern sort of sleek to it. In the blade, we're obviously going to see a thinner sole here now. You know, we're going to see not as much tech happening, or very little tech happening, as we see with most bladed irons. Again, clean look at the back, just the logoing as we've seen in the previous one. So the continuity through all three of these irons is definitely there. So again, it makes it very easy to sort of blend into that playing position. And this is beautiful. This is right in my sweet spot. Beautiful look, very clean, compact, thinnish top line, very little offset. So again, if we put these, all three of these irons together, and again, it goes back to this blending. I think Wilson have done a lot of work with this to allow these to be very blendable with the looks. And when you put these three down by side by each other, and what we see is the blade and the CB to be very similar. Probably CB just a little bit chunkier top line, the blade a little bit thinner, the XB just slightly longer in the blade, but the shaping of the heads are pretty much exactly the same. Around that toe into that heel section, very similar. So as I mentioned, these could be very blendable. The loft on the blade in the 7 iron is 34 degrees. So the lofting's exactly the same as we see in the CB. So again, if you wanted to blend it, CB, longer irons, blade in those scoring irons, and that's something that I might be tempted to do a little bit, is maybe just get something a touch more forgiving in that 3 and maybe 4 iron area, possibly even 5 iron area, and then I move up into the blade in those scoring irons. So lots of choice there for you to sort of get your head around, really, depending on what you're wanting out of your game. So, beautiful look behind the ball, very traditional look, really like it, but as I say, with that more modern sort of satin finish. That's gorgeous. That's a great feel. The feel I'm sort of used to with the previous model, if I'm being brutally honest, you know, is there any difference on that feel? No. Is the feel good? It's sensational, really good feel off there. You can see ball speed, 117. We're not going to see a ton of speed off this particular bladed iron, as with most blades that we sort of see. Spin numbers up there a little bit more, controls up there, land angle exactly where we sort of want it. So just post comments down below. Just tell me what your thoughts are with Wilson as a brand. I really love to sort of hear where you're coming out as a consumer golfer, looking in. Obviously, there's some huge brands out there, some great iron brands out there, but maybe does Wilson, where does that sit for you? Is it something that you've tried, you've enjoyed, have you got a set? Just post your comments down below. I'd love to hear where you're at with this as a brand. Oh, beautiful. Gorgeous. Beautiful flight. There's that control we're talking about. And again. So with the blade iron, we still see that 8620 carbon steel, obviously really, really sort of soft on there. All right, touch low in the face. That was a little bit of a miss hit. That'll be an interesting one. TrackMan showed it to be pretty central. That definitely felt a little bit lower in the club face there. And that's done all right, you know, spins there. And carry distance is still relatively consistent. So there we go. Availability-wise in the blade, exactly the same as we see in the CB. 3 iron through to pitch with a gap. Right and left hand. So post comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. The Wilson lineup of staff model irons, great look, and I really like the way they've categorized the models there now. So if you've got a staff model as that players category, which we've just gone through, and then we've also got the Dyna Power section for that more sort of distance orientated and forgiveness if you're needing that out of your set of irons. Another winner from Wilson. Make sure you go out and try them. Appreciate watching the videos as always. Stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't done so. There'll be more videos coming your way. Hopefully, I'll catch up with you all very soon.